We are live. All right. So, welcome to Geometry 1-0 Geometry Basics. Obviously, I'm very prepared by writing this all by hand. Let's begin. So, a few things that you need to know. I should probably have Cornell notes ready to go. We are still doing Cornell notes for my class, and I will be checking that when you upload your stuff to your Google Slides. Make sure that you're still doing Cornell notes. The first thing that I want to talk about are lines, and more lines. There's a difference between a line segment, rays, and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and draw some pictures, and I'm going to ask you, the class, what you think these things are. So maybe I should use technology to make these straighter. Ooh, I can make them blue. Yes, make them blue. Chunk, chunk, chunk. Okay, so I'm drawing 3 lines, but I'm going to annotate them slightly differently. So this line, I'm going to leave it. This line, I'm going to put arrows on both ends. And a running joke last year while Arrow was in my class was I couldn't call them arrows. I had to call them Claire's because it's basically just using her name. These are your 3 basic shapes. Sometimes also this in Khan Academy and elsewhere in your mathematics career might look like, let me just do a different direction so you don't get it confused. Sometimes it might look like this where it has like dots at the end to let you know, hey, it's not arrows, but sometimes there's just nothing. If there's nothing, you have to assume it doesn't go on forever and ever. These arrows say, hey, I go on to the left forever, I go on to the right forever. And again, sometimes if I were to copy this one, sometimes this will look a little bit different. Sometimes this will look like this, where it has a point here at the end. Sometimes there's no point. Again, if you have to assume anything, assume there's not an arrow, assume it's a point. All right, so I'm looking at your cameras right now. What do you think these things are? Yeah, Charles. Oops, sorry, you were already unmuted.
Oh, so the first one is a line segment.
Perfect, and I can tell you're ready to tell me what the next ones are, so yes. I'm going to cut you off so that other people can participate. Sorry. This is indeed a line segment. Can I make this window? Oops, I'm trying to switch to Zoom, and it's not letting me.
The line segment is the one that has nothing on either end?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Nothing or dots?
There we go. That's a good setup. Okay. What about the next one? Wyatt, yes.
That's just a line.
It is indeed just a line. And finally, this one on the far right. I can see your cameras too, so if you want to just raise your hand physically. I know Charles is ready to go, but I'm going to call in someone new. So, yeah, let's go with Jade.
Is it called a ray?
It is indeed called a ray of sunshine. It comes from the sun, which is a point to somewhere else. I don't know, however you want to remember it. So like some basic ideas. Yeah, rays go on and on forever in one direction and stop in the other direction, et cetera, et cetera. All right. And yes, question from Kira. Oops, sorry. God, I always assume people are muted. I need to not go so fast. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Are you going to be doing, like, just mostly on topic, are you going to be doing that thing that you did last year where you did, like, the overview at the top of the Cornell notes?
Oh, yeah. I forgot to do that, didn't I?
Yeah. Well,
I should say, yeah, let's go ahead and come back here and add to this. Our objective today is to be ready to make formal definitions tomorrow. I'm doing all the legwork, and it's also kind of unofficially that I'm not going to write down. It's kind of make sure that you guys remember how to do Cornell notes. I don't know if other teachers have already started doing Cornell notes or if they're still doing get to know you games and stuff like that, or busy work like we were doing yesterday setting up Khan Academy. But we're doing Cornell notes for all of my classes, and hopefully if you're really accustomed to doing them, hopefully you'll do them in college too. I know that I didn't. I went back to doing bullet points, and I kind of regret it now. All right, next thing, naming shapes. Naming shapes. Who's that Pokemon? No, it's not like, that's a triangle and that's a circle. It's like, how do you describe that triangle? So I'm going to use technology.
Is it going to be like the ABC triangle or whatever?
Indeed it is, yeah.
Okay.
So let's start really basic, as Charles was saying, with like a triangle-y thing. The way that this program works is you have to draw it off to the side and then make it correct. So I'm just going to put ABC, sure. And let's make a new shape also. Ooh, I have technology. I can make a rectangle. Oh, it's using white. Let's use a color, Mr. Sindel. Let's use black and no fill. Shoink. Sure, I'll call that a rectangle. And I will label it Z, Y, X, and W. And not super important, but might as well get there because we don't hit this subject until like January. Let's talk about a circle too. Let's do, that is not a circle. Oh my God, that's a circle. And wahaha, I have technology, so my circles are perfect. Wahaha. Although I'm sure that there's some artists in the room that might be able to make this look nicer. Still, my point in the center doesn't look very nice. And sure, I'm still labeling things. I'm feeling like a P for my letter. Okay, so how do you talk about these shapes? I want to be able to talk to you about this, for you to talk to each other about this, for you to talk to me about this. It's really annoying to say, you know, you start at the point on the left. It's like, left, is it left down, left up? Like, what are you actually saying? So how do you talk about shapes is what I'm trying to discuss here. Does anyone know, notation-wise, what they would write to describe what's happening with this shape?
Mm,
Charles is kind of sure. Jade has her
Yeah.
hand raised. Yeah, I'll go with Charles.
So wouldn't it be like AB is one line, BC is one line, and AC is one line?
You're really, really close, and you want to be careful there because a line goes on
Line
forever and ever and ever.
segment,
Yeah, exactly.
segment.
Exactly, yeah. So you have 3 line segments that intersect at those points. That's a great way to describe it. And the notation way of writing that, you're going to actually write a triangle. You're going to say triangle, and then it doesn't matter if you go around clockwise or counterclockwise. I know, like, if you're in a certain textbook, you might choose one or the other. I personally prefer going around clockwise because I read clocks. And I can say triangle ABC. And if I were talking about a certain line segment like Charles was, I can say, hey, this line segment right there, if I want to talk about, hey, go ahead and bisect line segment, whatever this thing is, how would you say that? You can say that this is line segment. Does anyone know the notation? I don't want to give it away if you guys know it. I want to see if you remember. You remember, Charles?
I believe so. Isn't it like a line with 2 dots on it and then AB? Or is it AB with a line in between it?
So yeah, it looks like that. And some people do put the
good
dots on
point.
it. It's kind of tedious for me to do. So even Khan Academy doesn't do that. I'm just going to say AB. Exactly. In fact, let's go ahead and edit some of these to make them more fun. Let's go ahead and say that this was a line segment out here versus a line. Let's go ahead and just randomly add a line that goes out forever and ever in this direction, just to make it more fun, and we can describe things that are happening. Perfect. How would I describe this shape right here, this polygon? And I think I'm just going to go ahead and give it to you because you might have never. Oh, you want to give it a shot? Charles has his hand raised again, but does anyone else want to try this? I feel really bad just calling on the same student over and over. It's basically a one-way conversation. Yeah, Wyatt?
Would that be rectangle like WXYZ?
Yeah, and then so once we get into the higher and higher dimensions, it's okay to go ahead and start saying like a rectangle shape, and you can say W, X, Y, Z. You can go ahead and say that, but typically after we hit triangles and then we start being lazy as mathematicians, we'll just say polygon W, X, Y, Z. This is the more common way of doing the notation down here, but I mean, that still looks okay to me. I know exactly what you're talking about by writing it up here, but you can see where it becomes difficult. It's like, I'm talking about septagon A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's like, how am I going to make a tiny little septagon in here? That's going to be impossible. So usually at higher dimensions, we just start only writing the letters. Perfect. Let's go ahead and see if someone can describe. I want to talk about this thing. I'm not going to describe the thing because you have to remember what it is, but this thing right here. How do I describe this thing if I was talking about it to my peer? Yeah, let's give it to Esha.
It would be array.
It is array.
Would it be Ray Z Ray Y Z?
Yeah, and it is important the order in which you do that. It has to be Ray Y Z exactly. So this is array. I can write it up here. It's array. And do you know how to do the notation also, Esha?
Well, don't you? What do you mean notation?
So you wrote Y, Z, but like, does it have things up here, points? Does it have lines in between? Like, what's going on with the way that you write it down?
I think I would do YZ with array with the arrow going the same way the arrow's going.
Oh, so
Oh no.
like that way, or?
Well, the other way made sense because the end of the array starts at Y.
Yeah, and okay, yeah. So this is the more typical way of doing it. I guess if you did ZY and then the arrow going the other way, you'd still be correct. But usually you always start with a point and then go to the one that goes towards infinity, YZ. That's the common way of doing rays. Precisely. What about another one? What about this? I'm going to call it a thing again. I feel so cringy when I say that. This thing right here. How do I describe this thing? Giving you time to think about it. I'm going to call on someone new. There's only one person that's new, so it's probably going to be you. Ooh, two people that are new. It's going to go to Kira. Thank you for waiting patiently.
I actually have a question, but I could answer that. Well, that one is a line, the XY.
Perfect.
But my question was about the ray. Could you do like the arrow facing the other way and do Y on the right and Z on the left?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So you could. It's very uncommon to do that, but you could have also done Z, Y, and then going this way. It's mathematically correct. It's just not as common.
Okay.
And then do you know, Kira, how to do the notation for this line that you're describing?
I guess maybe do like a line with two arrows and then do like X on the left and Y on the right.
Sure.
And then
yeah.
over top of it, like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very similar to this one, except it doesn't have any, or it does have arrows, and this one that Charles described is just a line with no arrows. Precisely. Okay. Another thing that we should describe, I know I'm squeezing in a ton of things for this one shape. What about, I don't know if this is 90 degrees. I didn't state that it is, but let's go ahead and say that this angle right here, maybe I should use a different color. Do I have orange? Orange. This angle right here, how would I describe that angle? You can't just say, oh, the one in the top right. It's like, okay, well, be a little bit more specific. How do I describe this orange angle up here? Charles has his hand raised. Emma has her hand raised. We'll give it to Emma. Oh, God darn it. I always assume that you're unmuted. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, go for it.
It's okay. Right angle?
Yeah, so, I mean, it looks like a right angle, but if we didn't know what angle it was, how would I, like, what's a way of phrasing this question? How could I use letters to somehow describe that angle?
Would be squared. What? I don't know.
Okay, I'll let you call on someone next. I don't know if you can see everyone's cameras.
I'll give it to Esha.
Okay.
Would it be using letters you want? Would it be like WXY angle?
W. Yeah, so it's going to be angle W X Y, and you could have also done something else too.
Could I have done YXW?
You could have also done angle YXW. The important thing is that the actual angle that you're talking about, x, is the one that's in the middle.
Okay.
But both of these are correct. So sometimes we get really lazy, and I guess it's okay sometimes, but if you say angle x, I don't like it, and sometimes Khan Academy doesn't. I just want to write them a giant letter like, this is not specific enough. Are you talking about this angle up here, this angle over here? Like there's 3 angles that you could be talking about, so you can't just say x. And it's one of those things that is annoying about geometry. This class is I'm going to get really oddly specific, and it's because this is kind of that transitional period where we need to get very precise in how we say things and how we prove things. This is your first class that you're going to start proving things, and we'll see that eventually. But yeah, so that's how you talk about angles. Is there anything else I really need to say here? Oh yeah, I need to talk about parallel lines and perpendicular lines. So let's go now ahead and make the assumption that Emma made, that it is a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to go ahead and now annotate that. This is a 90-degree notation. You can't just assume that, but I'm telling you, hey, I'm defining this thing to be 90 degrees. So you now have to trust me. This is 90 degrees. If that's 90 degrees, how could I describe the fact that this ray YZ and this line XY are perpendicular to each other? Perpendicular, again, if you don't know the word, I'll write it over here. Perpendicular, meaning 90 degrees. 90-degree intersection, I suppose. Intersection. What is the annotation, the notation, I don't know why I said annotation, the notation way of writing that that ray and that line are perpendicular to each other? Does anyone remember the symbol? I think this is like going back to 8th grade. I don't know if you guys learned this stuff. Apparently Charles knows.
I think I know. I'm not positive.
Yeah, I think I know.
Think you know. We'll give it to Jade.
Does it look like a sideways T?
It does, yeah. And
Okay.
I think a better way of explaining it is like an upside down capital T.
Yeah.
That makes sense? Okay, yeah. So that's what you're seeing. So I'm going to say that ray YZ. So I have to write YZ and then make it a ray. That ray YZ is perpendicular to line XY. XY. And I'm going to purposely, I was going to purposely make a mistake, but I'll go ahead and just write it correctly. It's perpendicular to Y or XY. And again, in terms of the graphical way that you're seeing that, it's that little squarey thing inside the angle. So if you ever see that, that transfers to this symbol perpendicular. And there's another symbol too that we haven't talked about that you will be using for definitions tomorrow, and that is parallel. So parallel, does anyone remember what they look like in terms of what I should put on this? I guess we're going to call it a rectangle. On this rectangle, does anyone remember what you put to say that they're parallel? Charles?
Like it looks kind of like an equal sign, I guess. Or yeah.
So
or just like a line on each.
Not quite. So if I put a line on each of these, that is saying that those two lengths are the same length. It doesn't talk about the relationship between their angle to each other, but that is also really important. And that's kind of getting ahead of me. Why did you want to try for parallel?
Was it just the 2 lines or no?
No, yeah. So if you have 1 line or 2 lines or 3 lines, all of those tick marks just mean length, not anything to do with the angle of the intersection.
Yeah.
Jade is freaking out. Yeah, go for it, Jade.
Okay. You put like a line underneath the ray or line segment or whatever it is, right? So like going along it?
Going along it like this?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a parallel line, but it's not the way that you do the annotation for the diagram.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to give it to us. It looks like I don't know what you call these things. Pinnacles, I guess, sideways pinnacles, or a less than sign. So I'm going to say that these two, this is a line segment and this ray are parallel to each other. And if you want to do another set, you just keep adding the pinnacles or less than greater than signs. I can say those two, this line and line segment, are both parallel. So those or how you annotate parallel. So I'll go ahead and say this is parallel symbol right here. And then how do I come down here? So parallel, that means that they don't intersect. Don't ever intersect. I'm just gonna randomly grab, let's do ray YZ again. So YZ, that ray is gonna be parallel to this one up above, which is XW, and this XW, that's a line segment, so just a line with no arrows. What is the symbol that goes in between here to say that those two things, they're kind of, I don't know if there's a group name to say rays, lines, and line segments, but this ray and this line segment are what? Does anyone remember the symbol that goes here? Kind of, Charles? Yeah, go for it, Charles.
Is it like an equal sign, but they have arrows on the end?
So like this?
Yeah, like it's double lines.
Not quite, but good guess. It's just equal sign that goes this way.
Oh, okay.
That's our parallel symbol. A question? Yeah, go for it, Kira.
So the symbol on the box for parallel is like the greater less than symbol, but when you're annotating, it's the two lines.
Yeah, when you're doing the symbolic representation, it's the two lines.
Okay.
And then since we talked about it already, there's not really a way. Oh, there is a way. Oh my gosh, I don't know what I was thinking. There is a way to do congruent. Congruent. And that congruent is just a fancy name of saying same length. So underneath this, I'm just going to write same length. Same length. When we're talking about line segments or rays or anything, I guess you're only talking about line segments, aren't you? If you're only talking about line segments, congruent just means same length. But if I'm talking about like triangles or something, it means a lot more than same length. It means same angles. No, same angles and same lengths, I guess. It's just adding on to this. But just for line segments in one dimension, same length is the equivalent of saying congruent. And that also has some sort of symbolic representation and a way that we annotate our diagram. And we've already annotated it before. It's what Charles said. So I'm going to say that this ray, well, I guess I'm going to just not think of this ray over here. I'm going to kind of ignore it for now. But this line segment has a length. Because again, if it's infinity, it doesn't really have a length, right? It's an infinite length. So zy, this length, is congruent to the length wx. And you put these little two tick marks. So the tick mark here, I call this thing I think it's called, is it with a K? I'm going to call it a tick, like a tic-tac, tick mark. There's probably a formal way of writing this. Hold on, I got to Google this. Is it called tick with a CK or what? Tick mark. I don't know. Tick mark geometry. Come on, Google. You got this. Oh, they call it a hatch mark. Whoa, I've been calling it wrong ever since. Okay, well, darn, let's get it correct then. Mr. Snell's been doing this wrong since high school. Who was the high school teacher that taught me that? I blame them. Also blame myself for not looking up until now. This is called a hatch mark. Wow, I've been calling this tick marks for my whole life. It's called a hatch mark. If anyone catches me saying tick mark, please correct me. It's called a hatch mark, and it means that things are same length or congruent. So we'll say, well, I already wrote down same length. So we can say that zy is congruent to, what was the other one? Wx. And again, I'm looking for some sort of symbol that goes in between here. And the symbol that we are going to use is kind of cool. It's like an equal sign, but on top of the equal sign, I have this tilde. That's the congruent way of writing that statement. And don't think we need, I'm thinking of all the definitions. That should be good enough. Kira has a question.
Yeah. So earlier you said the line ZY, like what you just wrote down here, ZY. You wrote it earlier as YZ with an arrow pointing the other way.
Yes. So before I was talking about array, and now I'm talking about just a line segment. It doesn't, with line segments, ZY and YZ are exactly the same thing, just like I'm reading from left to right versus right to left. With rays, it's kind of important to start at the point and go off to the, I don't know, the one that goes towards infinity.
Okay.
But yeah, now that I'm just only analyzing the line segment, they're interchangeable. Sorry for the confusion. And then this is kind of silly, but you can say the way that you talk about circles, which we don't need yet. I don't know why I put it on here. This is just called circle P. So you can just say, if you're talking about it to your friend, you can say that this is circle P. The point at the very center of the circle is what defines the circle. You can say that is circle P, and then another one with a different center is circle, I don't know, star. The star is the center point. Cool. And then if there's more vocabulary as it arises, then we can talk about it. Let's think.
Wasn't there like diameter and stuff?
Yeah, and that deals with circles, and I don't want to get into circles until we actually get onto, there's 2 units. There's a circle on conics and a unit on circles. So both of those will have a lot of that vocabulary in them.
Wait, so Mr. Sindel,
Yes.
if the one that just has one line is called the hatch mark, what's the other one called? The one with the 2 lines.
This is a good question. I don't know the answer. So geometry mark parallel.
Okay, wait. How do you do you can't
I'm not seeing it.
your entire screen?
They call it
Mr. Sindel?
line art. Yeah.
Your entire screen?
Oh, we're out of time.
Oh, shoot. We ended at 10, didn't we? I'm sorry, guys. We were 2 minutes over. That's it. Upload those notes to Google Slides. I'll see you guys tomorrow.